I was around maybe 16 or 15 and my mom and I were visiting this friend whose name I can't remember, but for this story I'll call him Bill. Bill lived out in this real old log cabin at the very edge of these old woods. It was around 11 o'clock at night. I was dead tired and my mom was driving through the woods. She had an extra gas tank in the back part of the car because it was a really long trip. I fell asleep and woke up to this loud crash when my mom was putting gas into the car. It freaked me out. My mom told me to stay in the car because it sounded like a loud gunshot crossed with a lion roar that came from a real pissed off person. She finished filling up the car and grabbed the flashlight thinking it was someone stalking us because this was the middle of the woods and who knows what else could pop up. I heard a noise I couldn't even describe afterwards and my mom never heard it. She came back around 5 minutes later and she was clearly freaked out, but even to this day she won't tell me, but I know what it is. The paranormal is quite normal for our family. We're used to weird stuff, but those woods. Imagine lost woods from Ocarina of Time crossed with Suicide Forest with a dirt road. At that point, I'm too tired to even ask what freaked her out, so I go back to sleep. I wake up around maybe 4 in the morning and we made it to the cabin. Bill is this guy that can best be described as a man-bear standing 6'4" and built like a wall. The most friendly guy you will ever meet. A gazebo was in the front yard, made out of pure walnut that he handcrafted, and beyond that were more woods, and beautiful sight where the lake just reflects off everything. We chat it up and have a fun time. He makes us this stew that is to die for. We're all relaxing by the gazebo around 11 at night. Normally I'd have gone to bed, but this was summer vacation so I was allowed to stay up. I start seeing these things, which I can only describe as red brooding eyes, and they were in the woods. But it was still too far to be certain. Bill ran inside to get his gun, and we follow him into the woods. The eyes disappear and it got freezing cold, like walk-in freezer cold. The flashlight goes out and I got sandwiched between Mom and Bill, and what happened afterwards still scares me. We all hear, "Where are my babies?" and this loud shrieking scream, and I can see this long black-haired woman who had no eyes and was just torn in a white blood-stained robe, just running like a linebacker right at us. At this point, I literally wet myself screaming. Bill fires his shotgun. I'm bawling my eyes out and my mom is hugging me like a small child. It starts to warm up after that and we all went back to the cabin. We were all hysterical. Bill locks the door tightly and was shaking so hard that he could barely hold his gun. We didn't sleep for the rest of the night after that. To first start off, I lived in a medium-sized house and shared a room with my brother. The room had a window on the right side looking into my backyard. The room was ground level. It was the last week we were living in the house after about 8 or 9 years living there. During the beginning few days of the week, strange things started happening like tapping, creaking, etc. Me and my brother weren't really fazed by it as the house was pretty old. About 4 days into the week, I woke up in the middle of the night with my TV on to static. I turned my TV off and went back to bed when suddenly I was woken up when I heard something outside. I saw a dark figure walk past my window. Me being a kid, as this was quite a while ago, I was frozen in fear and didn't move a muscle. After about 15 minutes of petrifying fear, I realized my brother was awake too, and him and I ran to my parents' room. They told us it was nothing and to go back to bed, so we did. The next day at about the same time, I woke up to the sound of water running in my bathroom. I got scared shitless but had to stand up and turn the water off. As I got to my bathroom and turned the faucet off, I saw the same figure I had seen the previous night staring at me through the small window. I remember its piercing eyes to this day. It was dark so I couldn't really see its body clearly, but it looked almost human besides the fact its eyes were a glowing white color that felt like it was piercing into my soul. I bolted out of the bathroom, woke my brother up, and gunned it upstairs to my parents' room. My dad was pissed that we woke him up again, so he decided to check out what was outside himself. He was horrified at what he saw on the camera. The cameras caught a glimpse of a black figure walk into frame right before all the cameras went static. My dad didn't want to call the police as they would have thought he was insane trying to explain there was a monster stalking his kids. The next morning I asked my brother if he woke up and anything happened to him in the nights prior to what happened, and he said he had woken up but not seen anyone or anything. The next couple of nights were eventless, but we kept alert to make sure nothing happened in the night. It was the final night before we moved out. I was woken up yet again, but at the exact same time as my brother. It was as if we were in sync. The creature was directly outside of our window staring at us with its white eyes. My brother screamed as loud as he could and our dad ran out with a gun and shot the figure. Right before he shot, the figure punched the window, leaving a shattered fist mark in the window glass. The figure ran around the corner of the house, leaving no blood trail and no evidence besides the broken window. My parents called the police and explained what happened. The police officer said there had been multiple calls with the same figure around the area. We moved out the next morning after trashing the broken window. We left the city never seeing the house or the creature again. Maybe it was something or someone that didn't want us to leave. But all I know is that I would never go back to that house again. I've always been into paranormal stuff, ghosts and whatnot. What happened to me took place on the week of Halloween in 2014. I remember being on a group call where we were discussing paranormal and creepy stuff, and this guy brought the Ouija board into the topic. Somehow someone dared me to set up a Ouija board and do it live with them. At first I wasn't really willing to do so because I'm easily spooked and I was all alone at home. Peer pressure kinda took me over, and that's when I agreed to do it. So we read about the do's and don'ts and I set up the board. I light some candles, I turn on my camera so they can see what's going on, and I turn off the lights. It's pitch black in my room and I can already feel that what I'm doing is a mistake. Anyways, I start the seance. Mind you, I was very tired because it was early in the morning / late at night, and that's something that isn't really advised whenever using a Ouija board. I ask simple questions to begin with and nothing happens. Then comes the moment where I ask the name of the spirit. That's where stuff starts going south. The planchette starts to move so naturally I freak out, and so does everyone in the call. The planchette goes to P, then A, and ends with Z. It then stops and makes its way on the top right corner, then the top left corner, then the bottom left corner, and finally the bottom right corner. According to whatever we read prior to the session, whenever the planchette does that, it means that the spirit is evil and is actually trying to escape. That's where I decide to stop the seance, because at this point I'm really freaked out, and so are my friends. I manage to end it, but right after that I'm frozen. I cannot move and I'm focused on this white orb glowy thing in front of me. I can feel that I'm bawling my eyes out, but I still cannot move, and my friends are yelling at me asking if I'm okay without getting an answer from me. After a few minutes, the orb glowy thing disappears. I regain consciousness and let my friends know that I'm fine. We then talk about what happened, and someone tries to search for the name Paz. After a few minutes, the orb glowy thing disappears. I regain consciousness and let my friends know that I'm fine. We then talk about what happened, and someone tried to search for the Paz name. It turns out it's the name of a demon entity called Pazu. At least that's what we gathered from it. After that, I ended the call and tried to get some rest and recover from what just happened. The next day my friends tell me that her psychic medium friend came to visit her, and the first thing she mentioned was the seance we did the night before without my friend telling her anything about it. She said that it was indeed a good call to end the seance, and that the spirit was trying to get out and was no good. Now we're in October of 2015, week of Halloween, where we played with the board. At this point, I no longer speak to my friends because life happened. Anyways, throughout this whole week, I could feel something around me. Stuff would fall down without me touching it, and a lot of other stuff like that. I'm usually able to tell whenever a spirit or something paranormal is around me, but this time it didn't feel right or good. I kind of assumed it was connected to what happened the year before, so I decided to contact one of the girls who was with me that night, and she did tell me she felt the same way and stuff was happening too. Anyways, it's all over now, but it really was the scariest paranormal encounter I've ever had. I wouldn't advise anyone to mess around with a Ouija board.